Morning, Cade. Good morning, Top Wolf. Welcome. Good afternoon, G-Man. Well, I don't know where you're at, but it's morning here for me. I have had students that aren't in Las Vegas though before, so I understand. Morning, Uchu. Good morning, Mail. Welcome. Morning, Kane. Good to see you. We'll do. Good morning, Giovanni. Good morning, Turtle. Welcome. Good to see you guys. I'll just warn you now, since we've got still a few minutes left. But if you have any assignment 3 questions, I'll kind of spend some time at the beginning of class today to go over those if you want to think of some. Did I ever find out what was eating my PC's resources? Well, to be honest with you, I don't. I'll tell you though, I have a little story. My very first computer was like one of those HP compact computers from like elementary school. They had a bunch of those, and I bought it because I wanted to play Minecraft. I think it had like 512 megabytes of RAM, and I had a little 1X graphics card in there. And I had upgraded to a 2006 a 2006 HP like workstation computer, and I used that for years, and I never like cleaned it. I never cleaned it, and so it like became chock full of dust. And one day I took that computer out to my dad's shop, and he's got this big old air compressor, and I blew out all of the dust. And when I turned that computer on, it ran much faster, and it ran quieter too. So I don't think there's anything wrong with my computer. I've scanned it, I've gone through. I'm not running out of resources per se, but I do have this set up in my office, and I kind of have a foam wall behind me. And I think my computer back there is a little dusty, and I think it's getting a little hot. So I'm gonna have to, I think that's what's going on. I think I'll just pull it out of there, give it some better airflow. I gotta clean out the dust. I think that may fix it. I definitely got it heating up back there. Yeah, so that was my little story, I guess. Not very directed story. Just giving you the history of my computers. Alright, so today we're going to continue on with inheritance, guys. Now, as I said, for those of you who weren't here, I'll repeat myself. But if you want to talk about assignment 3 at all, does anyone have some questions? I know a lot of people have gotten started. I'm very happy about that. Personally, I really dislike when you guys are, cramming it on the last day. I know a lot of you think that you can do that, but once again, I've said before, it's good to read the assignment and go to sleep and think about some of these things, because, at some point on Sunday night, I'm going to give up, reading your Discord messages, I have to pay attention to, say, the anime I'm watching. I read the subtitles, you know, so I can't multitask there. I'm either reading the subtitles or I'm helping you. So if you want to make sure that you get a good grade on that assignment, get started now, please. So you're not stuck messaging me at 11 p.m. on Sunday night. Okay? You're much more likely to get a response from me the sooner you start. Now, for the people who have started, you know that this assignment is not terrible. All right? It's not that bad. Everything in it we've gone over, okay? So there's no scary stuff in there. There's no weird const expression, no weird constructors that have default parameters, none of that stuff, okay? So what I'd like to do today is I just kind of want to briefly, well, let's see what's going on here with Chef. Could you go over the derived constructors again, please? Yes, I will go over the derived constructors. In fact, I'm going to finish up the example while I do that, so please let me know if I get to a part where you need me to kind of go over something again. Since this is kind of we're talking about composition as well, I just kind of want to do where we've got some engines and we have some vehicles that have engines in them. Okay? So last class, I'm just going to briefly refresh what we talked about. All right, and then we don't have very many notes left on this subject. But we will have a little bit more notes, and we'll be going over another example today, a different one, a much simpler example. Okay, so recall we talked about this last week, right? So we know what composition is, and we know what inheritance is. Composition is a has a relationship, and inheritance is a relationship. And when we're talking about inheritance, we always have a base class and derived class. So we went over some examples of that. Now, the main thing we talked about last class was the member access specifiers, in which there's two ways we can use them. The one that we've learned before is to control the access of the members, right? And X is public, private, or protected. And so we kind of reviewed that. And we learned that protected members are accessible to the class and the derived class. So you'll find in the assignment, the player class's variables are protected. And so you actually have access to them in the derived class. So you're getting a little bit of practice with that. And then we talked about super private things, right? In which the base class contains, say, let's see here. This is pretty big, isn't it? I think so. We talked about super private things when the base class contains a private member, right? And then the derived class inherits from it. Now that derived class has its own it has its own member. It has its own private member. So for example, you say our base class has an int x that's private. The derived class also has that int x, but no way can that derived class even access it. All right? So that's what I call something when it's super private. Or I call things like that super private, right? That's the Mr. P term. One of you guys posted a wonderful Drake meme. I loved it. All right, so I'll always ask about the super private thing. That's going to be in tests. And I think it might even be in the comprehension questions, but I'm not sure. Now remember we talked about how classes can inherit. So there's different ways of inheritance. And depending on how the derived class inherits from the base class, the members in the base class will kind of become some other, it will inherit a different member access depending on how it inherits. So if the derived class is to inherit publicly from the base class, all of the members basically stay the same, except for, of course, these private members are going to become super private in the derived class. But any protected members that exist within the base class will remain protected in the derived class. So similarly in your assignment, Your player has a health points value. Okay. Now that health points value is protected. So as the red player inherits from the base class player, it's inheriting publicly. That's how it's specified in the assignment. So that health points variable will remain protected in the red player class. Any public member also remains public in the derived class. Now if we inherit protected, that's a little bit different. It's exactly the same thing as this one, except the public members will now become protected in the derived class. And then private is a little bit more different than that, in which public and protected members will become private in the derived class. Both of them will. But what remains consistent among all of these methods of inheritance is that all private members in the base class always become super private in the derived class. Now remember, we can specify that. Here's the syntax to do that, right? We just have to fill it in here. And we did that in our example. And excuse me, I was just kind of moving things around since things are going to get a little bit cluttered today. So we worked on this engine example from last time. And you'll remember that the sports engine here is inheriting publicly from engine. So all you have to do is put it there. Okay. And that's how we do that. Cylinder. Yeah, I was having a bad spelling day last time. I'm sure you guys love to see me misspell things. I get worse every year. I got an A in English, I promise. I just forget over the years. I just sound things out. I think to this day I still can't spell restaurant. I don't know where the A and the U go. And you know, when you use Microsoft Word, I misspell it so bad that it doesn't even know like what I'm trying to spell. It can't even correct it. It's just ridiculous. Anyway. So what if we don't specify a member access specifier? Well, it's going to default to private. Okay. So now we're going to move on to the constructors, kind of what Chef wanted me to go over again. All right, and this is very important to consider, and we're going to be doing this more in our example today. So, if you remember this example that I was talking about, say we take some class cat. All right, we've got a cat, and we know all cats are mammals. So we kind of had this chicken and the egg discussion, right? In which is the cat a cat before it's a mammal, or is it a mammal before it's a cat? Well, we agreed that all mammals are mammals before whatever they are, right? All cats are mammals before they're actually a cat. So we agreed that it's number 2, and this relationship can be described in how the constructors will be called. So since every cat is a mammal, this means that the mammal's constructor will always be called 2. So if we define a cat in our main function, we're going to call the mammal constructor and we're going to call the cat constructor. Now, because the cat has all of the same variables that the mammal has, for example, as we discussed, warm blood, live birth, breathes oxygen, right? I guess those were our 3 variables that all mammals have. Those variables need to be created before the cat's variables can be created, such as, does this cat have whiskers, and things like that. Does this animal have whiskers? So the base class constructor is always called first. It's always called first. And so in your example, in your assignment, whenever you declare a red player, a blue player, or a green player, that player class constructor will always be called very first thing. Now, destructors work similarly, in which derived classes will always call at least 2 destructors. And when I say at least 2, that means I'm referring to kind of a chain in which there's only a base class and a derived class. But there is a chance we could have a base class, a derived class, and an even further derived class, such as engine, truck engine, and big truck engine. And so if we were to create a big truck engine, we will see that the engine constructor is called, and then the truck engine constructor is called before the big engine truck constructor is called. So there's always at least two, but there could be more than that. Yeah, you could keep going. Animal, mammal, cat, wildcat, puma, right? It can just keep going. And if you were to declare that puma, all of those constructors would be called, kind of like the big pyramid I talk about, before the puma constructor is called. And so similarly with that destructor, it works the same way, except it goes backwards. It climbs down the pyramid this time. And that will kind of destroy things in a reverse order. And that will destroy the puma, and then the wildcat, and then the cat, then the mammal, then the animal. So let's see. If you want to get rid of the... let's see. Destructor gets rid of big engine, truck engine, engine in that order. Yes. It gets rid of it in that order. You can't have a truck engine before an engine. And if you destroy the engine before the truck engine, it just doesn't make sense like that. I think we're okay. Cade, please refresh if you can, but I think we're okay, right? I haven't experienced any problems. Okay. Yeah, cool. So remember, this is my favorite description of this. It makes a little pyramid in which when, say, something is born, the base constructor is called, then the derived, and then the derived, and then it can keep going, right? It can keep going. More derived constructors can be called. And eventually that object will live its life. And then once it's done living its life, meaning it leaves scope, its destructors will then be called in a reverse order. So it makes this little pyramid. And so that's the order of things, okay? So in your assignment, you actually don't have to make a red player, blue player, or green player destructor, but they do have them by default. And so when you create the red player, it goes player, red player, and when the red player is destroyed, it will go red player, player. So I hope that makes sense. Please let me know if it doesn't. Now we're going to kind of get into our coding here. Remember, this is very important. Is there a way we can specify the constructor? Right? So I'm creating, say, a player or an engine. Let's look at our example. I'm creating an engine. And we're going to say, hey, our sports engine has a lot of horsepower and it has a lot of cylinders. And I notice here that our engine has these two constructors. It has these two constructors. And one of them is nice enough to set these values for us. But the other one, it's going to set these to 0. So we're asking, is there an easy way, whenever we create a sports engine, can we specify to the base class what constructor I want to be called? And the answer is yes. And I would like you to practice this in your assignment. And that's exactly how it's done, right? So Giovanni got it there. Whenever we want to specify that constructor, we must use the inline method. So you notice here we've used the inline method. Now I'll kind of give you this example. Let's see, Chef says, when specifying the constructor in the CPP file, do we use red player player? Yeah, almost. So remember last class, we had to specify, we got confused between the inheritance operator, is what we're calling it, and the scope resolution operator. So what you have there is the scope resolution operator. That's the double colon. So it's just a single one. And so if we were gonna do that, you would have, say, red player, scope resolution, and then the constructor. And then it looks like that. But then you say, hey, I would like to call a player constructor. So if I do this, can you tell me what constructor does that call? What constructor does that call? because the default one, right? So we want to specify a different one. So notice here what I'm doing. Now, these are protected. In your assignment, these are protected. And because they're protected, I'm allowed to access them here. I'm allowed to access them here. Now, pretend like these are private. If these are private, they are now super private in my derived class, and I don't have access to them. So I'm almost required to call a constructor. Right, so I don't have anything in the parentheses. I'm going to call the default thing here. But instead of doing something like this, where I'm like, hey, what are we talking about? I don't know, it's going to be red plus maybe a toString, the ID counter, right? Something like that. And then the player type. Something like this, right? This is kind of, I'm giving you some code here, aren't I? What a nice guy. You could do this, but let's say I want to save myself some work. I want to use that parameter constructor. So I'm going to move these up here. I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to pass my strength in. Whoops. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to pass my skill in. I'm going to pass in the name. And I'm going to pass in the character type. And then I don't need this stuff at all. Right? So here I go. And I've specified, don't call the default constructor. Please call the parameter constructor. Please call the parameter constructor. And what do I want to give? Well, I know that my red players have 3 strength. I know they have 1 skill. I know their name will be red ID counter. And I know that their player type will be R. That's what the inline does. This says, hey, please call this constructor. I don't want the default. I would like this one. Does that make sense? And I see Chef says there, this is where I was getting stuck. Does that make sense? What I'm asking you to do. Well, let me see here. Let's see what I said. Okay, so let's work on our, let me just kind of talk about this here. It says this default constructor. So when I say this, I'm talking about this. This is a red player default constructor. Okay, so the derived default constructor is different than the base default constructor. So this red player here is the default constructor. And so I say, hey, this default constructor should specify a call to the parameter constructor using the inline method. So if I were to reword that, I should have said something like the derived default should specify a call to the base parameter. C2. Does that make sense? So this is exactly what I'm talking about. In that the derived default CTOR, this one, needs to specify a call to the base parameter CTOR, which is this one. So that's what I'm talking about. So I'm glad we could clear that up. And that is what we kind of ended on yesterday, roughly. Recall, if no constructor is specified, the default base constructor will be called by default. The inline method, HAMA, is this. It's where we use what we're calling as the inheritance operator. Maybe I should check this. Operator C++. Maybe we should check this. There's a nice, let's see. There's a nice kind of operator page for C++. Let's go check it out. I'm about to lose you guys, aren't I? Stop! Ah! Chrome strikes again. I can't do it, guys. All right, so you guys should be back. Hopefully. Okay. Hopefully there's no adults here with opioid addictions. Why does it do that? Please give me the big table. Where's the big table? Oh, okay, here we go. Sorry about that, guys. Chrome, this is what Chrome does. I told you. All right. What does it call it? Notice the scope resolution operators up here. Where's our colon? What do they call it? Hey, see, it's not even listed as an operator. So, as I said before, right? That's consistent with what I said. Yeah, please refresh if you need. Of course, there's a delay now. Sad face. But I'll clean out my computer this weekend. It's not too bad. You guys are still with me. You can still hear me, and you can see my smiling face. So we're gonna be okay. This was consistent with what I said last week, right? Or this week, I guess, that colon, it's not really an operator, right? It's just a syntax thing. So we're going to use a Mr. P term to call that the inheritance operator. So to answer your question, Hama, the inline method is when we use this little colon here, and we add in a call to the base class constructor. So when I say inline, I'm talking about this. This is an inline right here. So I hope that answers that question. And if there are no more, well, let's see where we're at here. Of course, if no constructor is specified, the default constructor is called first. And then we talked about what a function override is. Okay, we talked about a function override. Now that is happening in your assignment. Can anyone tell me what function is being overridden in the assignment? Do you guys know what function that is? What is the function override in the assignment? And I can add probably some notes here about that, just to kind of clean that up. If the function is called from the derived class, the derived class version is used. I know some of you started on the assignment. That's not a function, Chef. That's the constructor. And remember, when I define a constructor, I say it's a function-like body of code. But constructors are not functions. Topwolf says the do damage function. That's correct. It is the do damage function. So you'll notice here it says do damage, do damage, do damage. And if you go look up in the player class, you'll see that it's got a do damage there. Okay, oh, I'm highlighting the wrong thing. But notice the do damage is there. Okay, so do damage is being overridden in the base classes, the derived classes, excuse me. Mel asks, do we make a makefile? No. Apparently, the last makefile was too complicated. I didn't want to do that. It had renamed the executable to main. And I got a bunch of messages about what does this message mean when it's already compiled. So I thought we could take a break from that, and I'm just letting you to compile it this way. We'll go back to the make files in a little bit, but just compile it that way. Yeah. Thank you, Giovanni, and thank you, Uchu, for answering that question. So as I was saying, if the function is called from the derived class version is used. Unless a scope resolution is used to call the function from the base class. All right. So I kind of talked about that in the assignment last time. This is probably where I lost you a little bit. But if I'm in my main here, this is an engine. This is a sport engine. And so if I wanted to call start, which is going to be our overridden function, if I call it like this is going to be the derived call. This is derived. But notice that in our engine class, this start function is public. Okay, it is public. So we do have access to it. And you say, well, how do I access that? Well, it's pretty easy. I can do it like this. E2, say, hey, go to the regular engine class, please, and call start. This is about the same as doing it this way. And as some of you hopefully know at this point, that whenever we're inside the sport engine class, this scope is assumed. So whenever you're kind of defining things in here, I don't have to do this. I don't have to say engine horsepower. I don't have to say engine cylinders. I'm allowed to, but it's redundant. Why is it redundant? It's because we're already in the scope of this class. We're already in the scope of this class. So we don't have to do this, okay? It's assumed. The engine scope is assumed. But say we're in the sport engine class. If I wanted to call start, this does not do enough. If I put this here, I get an infinite calling sequence. I get an infinite calling sequence from this. Why? Because start calls start, calls start, calls start, calls start, calls start, calls start, calls start. It keeps going. That's called recursion. We'll get into that later. But what if I wanted to call the base class, right? What if I wanted to call the base class? Well, as of right now, we are in the sport engine scope, right? That is our infinite calling sequence. But you say, hey, I'm derived from an engine, right? I'm derived. I can call it if I want. I just need to specify that scope. And now when I do that, the infinite calling sequence goes away. And so this start will then print this, and then it will go up here and call this one. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. You don't really have to do that in your assignment, but there's one option in your, say, red player do damage player X, for example. You're going to check to see what the player type is. So you're going to say, hey, you know, if my x.get player type, say, equals, say, red. Now, this one's a little different. You have to do, say, half damage here, right? Set those S. They are the same function with different output, and you can specify which one you need. Yes, you can. Depends on where you are. If you are in a regular engine, you only have one option. If you're in the sport engine class, you have the two options, right? You have the sport engine start, or you have the regular engine start. Either one. Can you tell me how many options I have for the big truck engine? How many starts do I have access to? In the big engine truck, how many starts? Come back here. I have 3 of them, right? Yeah, I have 3. So I can just specify the scope. Specify which one I want to deal with. So say you're in your do damage function here. You've got some else ifs going on. And you say, hey, this one's blue and this one's green. Well, this one's special too, right? That's a double damage right there. But this one is just regular. This one's just regular. And in fact, since it's regular, you can actually refer to this function if you want. You say, you know what? I don't want to type any extra code. I want to call this one. So what do I type if I want to call this one? Tell me. If I want to just call the base class do damage from player, what do I type here? Any ideas? I'll even give it to you if you get it partially right. And then Giovanni says the engine one, yeah, the truck engine and the big truck engine. All 3 of those starts are accessible from that location. So what do I type here? Player, yes, exactly. Player do damage X. Okay. Yep. So that will go up to our base class. Base class damage. Okay. And this is because we're doing regular damage, right? This is unaltered damage. This is just regular. So we're allowed to do that if we want. You can go ahead and do that. In this case, you can't really do it that way. You're going to have to do some other special stuff here. But you're totally welcome to just call the base class one here if you want. So I hope we're learning. I hope this makes sense. And that's what a function override is, okay? That's what a function override is. Now, overrides and overloads are different. On the test, I will ask you questions like that. I will say, what is this? And I'll give you an example. A base class and a derived class contain these things. Is it an override or an overload? Okay, so just kind of remember that. I'll ask you these types of questions. Okay. Of course, we talked about this just briefly. In a derived class, we can add new members if we want. It's pretty easy. Like I said, if we have a cat, let's add whiskers. And also, we can always use the scope resolution operator to access members that are non-private in the base class. For example, we used the start example here, right? We can access start if we want. We can access the do damage if we want. We have these options too. Synthos asks, in the calculate damage function, how can we get the strength and skill to calculate the damage in the weapon slot file? Well, there's a lot of stuff involved there. It can actually be done in one line, which is fun, but it is kind of interesting to think about. You are in the player class. So whenever you have a player, the player might have a sword. It also has its own stats, right? So every player has a strength and skill here. They're right here. I'll do a snipping tool. They're right here. Let's see. Whoop. Okay. So we've got what? We've got the strength here, and we've got the skill. There they are. And we have down here the player's weapon. So you have access to all of them. So you're going to take your weapon and you're going to call calculate damage, and you'll say, what do I pass into it? Well, I have access to these things. I'll just pass them in. Does that make sense? Now, Uchu, you have a question there. I'm telling you this. Read the PDF here. I know that this was going to be a little confusing. So just, and I also did this in the assignment video. I made an assignment video on Tuesday or whatever. And I told you the first thing you should do, this is a little bit in a bad spot in the PDF, but just come down here and do this part real quick. I tell you exactly what you need to include in every file to get it all to kind of connect. And I think someone's tested this already, so I know that this probably works, okay? So if you wanna know how to include things, the weapon slot H is going to include IOStream, because that's kind of the top. That's the top of our kind of chain. And then the weapon.cpp file only needs to include that header file. But when you get to the player file, you need to include the weapon slot.h, right? Why do we need to include it? Well, that's because the player, we have some composition going on. The player has a weapon slot, so you need to include that weapon slot.h, just like Topwolf says there. So go ahead and fill that out. I hope that helps answer that question, Uchu. So now, today, we're going to just talk about these additional things. We only have 2 things to talk about, and then we're pretty much done with inheritance. So, the first thing we need to talk about is that derived classes can inherit from other derived classes. Actually, we talked about that last time, didn't we? In our example, we did a nice big truck engine coming from the truck engine, and the truck engine comes from the engine. Okay? So we did already talk about that. But now we need to talk about multiple inheritance. This one's fun. Now, multiple inheritance, as you can see there, I'll keep it, I guess. So if you can read ahead, which you probably did, you can see that it means that classes can inherit from multiple classes. Classes can inherit from multiple classes. Here we have a quick question. Can you go over the placement of the keyword static in functions? Well, I could. But I would also, let me see here. Go to the notes from classes and find that little bit where we talk about just statics. And you'll see that it always goes up front. And then if we're initializing it outside of the class, it doesn't come with the static name. So it goes out front. Now const, some of you get that mixed up too. Any const member function needs the keyword const after the parameter list in both the header and the definition. So those get a little bit mixed up. Now these are functions, right? These are functions. And so in your weapon class, wherever it is, whoops. I do not like that. In your weapon class, we have a constant variable, right? We have a constant variable. That's not a const member function. It's a variable. So the const goes out front. You should have learned about const variables in CS 135. Okay, so this should be review. But that's just the thing. This is a variable, right? This is not a function, so it's different than, say, these ones. The members, the functions, rather. So classes can inherit from multiple classes. This is generally referred to as unsafe or poor program language design. Okay. Now Java, I think this, I'm just going off the top of my head here, but Java, largely considered a safer version of C++, which it is. Jave does not have this. Okay. Now this is just a fun fact. I don't ask you these questions on the test. This is not a programming languages course. This is a C++ course. But I want you to be aware that multiple inheritance is not something you'll find everywhere. And C++ allows it. Jave. Okay? So how does that work? Well, it's kind of exactly the way you might think, in that if we're going to inherit from multiple classes, of course you need this colon here, and then you have your first base class, and then you just append on any other base class you want. Okay? So we're going to do an example of this, and I'll tell you what the problem with this is. Ambiguity. Whoops. So I have a very poor example for this, because multiple inheritance is kind of hard to think about. Not very many examples in life can I think about where something inherits from two different things. But there is one thing. Does anyone have any ideas? Do you have an example that you've thought about in life where something inherits from two things? There's only one that I can really think about off the top of my head. And we will use it to make our silly little example. Yeah, that's the one. That's exactly right. All of us, right? People. That's right. That's right. That's the only example I can really think about. If you've got another one, let me know. But this is the only one I can ever think about, and it's people, right? It's people. It's genetics, rather, not people necessarily. Your cat probably inherits from their cat's parents, right? Not us, but anyway, I'm just rambling at this point. So we have multiple inheritance, and how we do that is we have two base classes. And so the example I use for this is I just pretend I have my family. Let's do it this way, actually. First, we're going to have a class family. 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 All right, maybe I should abide by Clang Tidy here. And let's assume that all families have just a few things. I like to do a last name, and I like to do, say, an origin. Okay. And then we'll just have a few publics. We're going to have a default constructor for our family. We're going to have a parameter constructor for our family. The destructor, why not? Just for fun. And then we'll have two getter functions. Now, for those of you who are still confused on the const, I'll do it for you real quick. Let's have a string get last name constant. Why is it constant? Why is that constant? Can someone remind me, please? Why would that function be constant? What does it mean? Oh, by the way, while I'm asking that, let me just... I don't want to do it because Web Campus will freeze my computer. Please go look on Web Campus. I've added 2 quizzes. Okay, I've added 2 quizzes. I kind of did it under the radar. I did tell you that each assignment is going to have its own kind of comprehension question thing. Okay, please go to Web Campus and look. You'll see that there's 2 quizzes under the assignment section. Just answer the questions. All of the questions can be answered by reading the notes. Okay? So please go do that. You've got plenty of time. And if you pay attention in this class, they should take less than 10 minutes. Okay? So it's not like something scary. So please do that. I didn't want to sneak that one in on you. They exist. Now, Chef, Cade, and Giovanni say it's not allowed to change members, right? It's not allowed to change members, right? So this can't change the object. This can't change the family. So yeah, you're right. Ruchu asks, do you want long answers? No, but do not write paragraphs. I hate that, okay? Everything I've asked has a very brief explanation, all right? What is a constructor? In the simplest way you can describe what is a constructor. No paragraphs, okay? This is not an English course. As you all know, I can't spell. So I don't expect you to, do anything of the same. It'd be nice if you spelt things right, but I'm just kind of talking in general. I don't really care for stuff like that. Synthos asks, in general, are getter functions always const? Yeah. I would answer that with a yes. Okay? I would answer that with a yes. In general, they are. They don't have to be, but you should make them. Please don't write 3 pages. Angelica will be upset with you. Okay, so this is our family. Now, I'm going to make a few classes here, and then we'll go ahead and fill in everything, okay? So I'm going to have my... Well, let's go ahead and fill these in now. I kind of get confused. I just want to stay up to date here. So down here, we'll do our family class. Let me grab some stuff here. All right. First thing I need to do is this. Say, hey, I got to add all of these. Don't forget them. All right, second thing I need to do is add some of this stuff. Look at how easy this is, by the way. For those of you who need help with your coding skills, look at what I'm doing. Look at how easy this is. I just did some copy paste and now everything is syntactically correct. No problems whatsoever. Took me 2 seconds. Okay. So what happens in our default constructor? Well, I should probably stick with clang tidy here. And we'll say, hey, this stuff gets to be empty string. Now I'm going to confuse you guys real quick just because I want to introduce this idea. Though by no means are you required to use it. I'll add it in the notes. But I told you that we can inline constructors. We can also inline variables. So here I say, let's initialize, say, our last name to be empty string. And let's initialize our origin to be empty string. If I want to, instead of putting that stuff here, I'm allowed to do it up here. Now, it's not very important, in my opinion. It's only important for, say, constructors. But this is helpful. If you ever want to do it this way, you're totally welcome to. And I just want to throw it out there. Instead of doing this, I can do it up here. If this confuses you, don't ever think about it again. But this is something that you can do. So if I wanted to do the same thing here, last name and say origin, instead of initializing them here, I will do it here. And I'll say, hey, you get the last name and you get the origin. Okay. Now let's do some nice couts here. We'll say this is our default. I like doing the couts. I think it helps us show the calling sequence. It's going to be our param family. Okay. And then the destructor, we're just going to say goodbye, right? Let's say goodbye to our family. That sounds so bad. They're just going on vacation, okay? They're just going on vacation. Okay, nothing's happening to them. And then these are the getters, right? So we'll just kind of return our last name. And we'll return our origin. Okay, so that's our family class. That's our family class. Is there any confusion there? Hopefully not. Obviously, I introduced this new thing. I threw it at you. But just remember that this is the same thing as this. That's all. That's all. So now, let's derive some classes, okay? So we're going to do Petrowski. That's me. That's me. And I want my Petrowski class to inherit from family. I'm going to do it publicly from the family class. Nick asks, so that's only with constructors that we can initialize like that? Yes, that is correct. You are 100% right. Why does that work? What? The Vin Diesel meme? You'll have to post that in the memes chat or something. Oh, okay. I understand. I understand. Okay, so check this out. These are private, okay? So the only thing I'm going to have in here is a few things. I'm going to have, say, my Petrowski default constructor. I'm also going to have, say, my destructor. I'm not a movie guy. I'm sorry. I'm not a movie guy. Shrek 2 to this day is still my favorite movie because I don't watch new movies. I'm not a movie guy. I like Shrek 2. That's about as far as I go. I don't know why that's not highlighting. It should. It's kind of bugging me a whole lot, but I don't think there's anything wrong there. What am I doing? That's right. Alright, it'll change. Oh, I love Shrek 1 too, but Shrek 2 just hits me differently. There's the whole, like, I need a hero scene with the fairy godmother. And I don't know, something about that just, like, gets me super amped. Okay, so we have our two classes. Let's say I get married, not necessarily get married, but let's say I have a family with a Lopez family. Now we're gonna do, we're not necessarily gonna assume everyone is American here. So what we're gonna do is a hyphenated last name, right? In America, well, I don't want to offend anybody. You know, I'm not trying to offend you, but sometimes they take the man's last name, right? And that's not a requirement by any means, and I don't want to offend anyone in this class. So we're going to do a hyphenated name, which I think is fair. So we'll do a Petrowski-Lopez family. All right, so let's say, you know, I had a family with a Lopez family, and now I've got that. Okay. Now, this does inherit from family, but more so it inherits from the Petrowskis, and it inherits from the Lopez family. Okay. All right, I got everyone talking about Shrek 2 stuff. To answer your question, yes, but we got to stay on track here. So, is everyone following? Please tell me. We've got our Petrowski family. We've got our Lopez family. And I had a family together, and we're inheriting from both the Petrowski family and the Lopez family. So we've got our hyphenated family here. Yeah, Uchu is way ahead of me. Yes, that's exactly right. We're going to do a little picture now. We're going to do a little picture. It's time for paint. I haven't used paint yet this semester, so let's do it. Uchu's way ahead of me. Intermingle is a great word. Giovanni, not necessarily. The syntax is, it doesn't have to be this. This could be A if I wanted it to be. Oh, I know why it's doing that. I don't know what I'm doing. You guys gotta catch me up on this stuff. What am I doing? That's why it's doing that. Sorry about that. So, no, the syntax doesn't have to be this way. The syntax is this. It's that you're just gonna list the inheritance method and the class, and then append them with commas. Okay, that's how it works. Does that answer that question? The syntax is this part, and it is included in our notes. Where is it? Here it is, the syntax. So you name it whatever you want. In this case, I'm doing it this way, just to keep things consistent. But this is the only part that matters. So, like I said, we're doing a paint here. It's going to be a very simple thing. But in your books, especially when you get to CS 326, we're going to see something called a diamond. Kind of a diamond inheritance. Okay? Hopefully everyone can see that okay. I think so. So, up here we've got our family. As Vin Diesel would say. That's good enough. Okay. And then here we've got our Petrowski family. And over here we've got our Lopez family. Lopez family. And down here we've got our, I'll just PL family, right? Oh, I don't, my last name is so long, I don't know if we can fit it all in there, so we'll just do it that way. Okay? So, what happens here? Well, we have an inheritance chain in which Lopez and Petrowski both inherit. And if they inherit, do you know what that means? Well, that means, hey, this is going to be small, but I've got a last name, and I have an origin. Okay? I spelled it wrong again. That also means Petrowski has a last name and an origin. Now, what does this one have? This one's inheriting from both of them. So what is the problem? What's the word we use? What is the problem here? Can anyone tell me? Now, Uchu said, yeah, they're going to intermingle, but more so. Can anyone put it in some more computer science-y terms? What is the issue? What is the issue? Someone in the Discord is going to change their name to Orogin now. What is our issue here? I know we're a little bit delayed. Ambiguity, right? We've got some ambiguity. So let's make that happen. Let's make that happen here. So let's do a few things. I'm going to copy paste everything. It's my favorite thing to do. And I don't need this. But I do need this. And I do need this. Okay. And I don't need that stuff. But I do need this. And that. And finally down here. It wouldn't know which exactly. Chef, you put it exactly the way that I would put it. It is ambiguity, yes. It does need context, yes. And if I were to just specify one, it would not know what I'm talking about. It would say, what the heck is your deal? So, let's kind of do some fun stuff here. Just for fun, I'm going to make this protected because I don't want to get into any kind of ridiculousness here. Okay. So let's say in our Petrowski here, we're going to specify a call to the parameter constructor family. I'm going to say, hey, I am a Petrowski, and I originate from Poland. Petrowsko. Can't even spell my own last name, guys. Who am I? And then we can say, hey, goodbye, Petrowski. Just for fun, I like to see those destructors print. I also like to see the constructors print. Petrowsko. Okay, so I'm from Poland. I'm not from Poland, but that's where my that's where my family came from, at least part of it. Now Lopez is similar, except not from Poland, but from Spain. That's what I would say. I think I looked it up before class, but I'm not sure. I think Spain. And it's Lopez, right? This is going to be our default Lopez. And we'll have a goodbye message too. Just for fun, to see where everyone's coming from and where they're going. And now it's time. Now it's time for some fun. Okay? So, we're already going to have an issue here. In that, let's say, well, the main issue is quite a few things. One, we probably need, it's just, we're going to call two constructors here, right? We're going to call two constructors. The family constructor is going to be called, actually three constructors. The Petrowski family constructor will be called, and the Lopez constructor will be called. Okay? All of this stuff is going to be called. And so let's pretend like we're going to have some issues here. I could put a parameter constructor in these classes, but it doesn't really make sense in terms of this example. So I might want to say, hey, my origin is equal to, Poland plus Spain, right? Now, this looks fine, okay, but I assure you that the compiler will not think so. In fact, I think it should be yelling at me right now, and I don't know why it's not. Okay? I don't know why it's not doing that. It should definitely be angry at me right now. Because what I'm saying here is, what am I talking about? What the heck am I talking about here? So, let's go ahead and test it out. Let's see what our compiler says. Let's make a Piotrowski-Lopez person. Let's see what happens, shall we? All right, prepare for the stream to freeze. MOBA's coming up. The resources will be angry. Looks like we're... Uchu asks, is the program seeing origin as a string Poland plus Spain? Well, you'll see. We're going to have a little bit more problem than that. All right, let's see what we're talking about here. What is going on? Whoa! Okay. First thing it says, something is private, huh? Oh, did I mess that up, guys? I'm always messing stuff up. No? What's the issue? Oh, I see. What did I do wrong? Well, classes are all private by default. Let's fix that. Next. All right, look at this. Candidates, origin, whatever that means. Reference to last name is ambiguous. Reference to origin is ambiguous. What is it saying here? It's saying, it says, I don't know what the heck you're talking about. It says, which one? There's two origins, isn't there? There's two of them. Where do they exist? Well, super zoom. There's one there, and there's one there. And now this one has both of them. It says, I have both of them. I have a last name. Jeez. I have a last name times 2, and I have an origin times 2. Yes, exactly. So, Giovanni, that's exactly how we fix it. You would say, no, I will specify this to be, say, Piotrowski origin. Or say, Lopez last name. Right? That's exactly how we fix it. That's exactly how we fix it. But in terms of this example, it doesn't really make sense. So let's do something a little bit fun here. What do you say we do a little almost member function override? What do you say we do this? We say, hey, I'm going to add some private variables here. This is going to be my string last name. This is going to be my string origin. In addition to that, I'll do some function overrides up here. And then we'll come down here. We'll do this. So I'm doing some overrides here, folks. I'm doing some overrides. In this override, we're still going to return the last name, but guess what? We're in the Piotrowski-Lopez scope here, okay? So it knows what I'm talking about. It knows what I'm talking about. But up here, here's what we're going to do. Let's say, hey, you are equal to the Piotrowski origin plus, say, this, plus the Lopez origin. What do you say about that, huh? What do you think? Are you okay with that? Did I speed run this too fast? What do you think? Did we do it? Let me kind of refresh what I did because I know I went super fast there. In my base class here, I added some stuff. I added its own last name and its own origin. I added its own getter functions. Okay? And then when I do this, this always references this one, by the way. Remember I said this at the beginning of the class. This is happening by default. This scope is assumed. This scope is assumed, okay? It's assumed. So I don't need to include it. At least I don't think so. We'll see. I don't need to include that, all right? I don't need to. It's assumed. But these cannot be assumed. So I will specify which one I'm working with, all right? And that's where our scope resolution comes in. So let's go see what happens here. And we're going to see some fun little examples. So if we compile it, we have no problems now. What do you know? What do you know? We did it. Celebration. And now we'll run it. Whoa! Look at that. Look at that. What happened there? What happened there? What? All we did was type this. What the heck happened there? Can I see it still? I can't tell. There's a delay. I can still see it. Okay. What happened there? Excuse me while I'm going to take just a moment. Give me 1 second. Sorry, folks, had to blow my nose. But, does it make sense? All we did was declare a person. Yeah, all the constructors and destructors. Let's see here. Uchu asked, did it even access the new origin variable? Yes, it did. So let's talk about it. So, we declared this person, right? So what does this mean? This means that a constructor is called. Okay? That's what that means. Constructor. That's what that means. Okay? And so we have to do the pyramid stuff. We have to go all the way to the base thing. So it says, what is this guy made out of? What is my Petrowski-Lopez made out of? Well, you can see here, kind of, that the first thing I made out of is Petrowski. That's the first thing that's listed. So it says I need to create a Petrowski. So it comes up here and it says, what is this Petrowski made out of? It's made out of family. So it comes up here to the family. So you notice here the very first thing that's called is the parameter family constructor. And then it says I'm allowed to create a Petrowski now. So those were the first two base classes being called, right? This is base, this is derived one. And then it says, am I good to create myself now? Am I ready? It says, I've created a Petrowski. Am I done? No, I'm not. I still have to make a Lopez too. So it comes up here to Lopez. It says, hey, what am I made out of? It says, I'm made out of family. So I've got to come up here and call family again. So what happens? The Lopez family is called, and then the Lopez is called. You guys might be able to hear my cat here, Patty. She's running away from me, but if I can grab her, I'll make her say hi. So we are seeing two family. We're seeing two family constructors being called, and that's because the Petrowski is created and the Lopez is created. Once that happens, we call the default Petrowski Lopez. And then what happens next? Well, the program ends, right? They didn't have a very long life. They went on vacation. The program ends. I'll show the cat in just a moment. So, the first person we say goodbye to is Petrowski Lopez, right? It will go in the reverse order. In fact, you can see it's a pyramid, isn't it? It's a pyramid, exactly. This is perfectly symmetrical. Look at it. I'm so proud of myself. Look at it. It's perfectly symmetrical. How do I know? I'll just draw a line right there. It's not a very good line. But I can like fold it on itself like it's a book. Notice it's perfectly symmetrical. So we say goodbye to Petrowski Lopez. We say goodbye to Lopez, then family. Then we say goodbye to Petrowski, then family. So that's the order of the constructors and then the order of the destructors. And that's today's class. We've officially covered inheritance. Okay? While I'm grabbing my cat here, is there anybody who's got any inheritance questions? We're ending class a little bit early today, so let's take some time here to answer some questions. Next week we'll be starting on our next stuff, which is dynamic memory. I gotcha. Wow. All right. Everybody, this is Patty. She's not very comfy right now. Yeah, Patty's base class is mammal. Let's show her off to the stream. Look, she's such a big cat. Wow. She's a good one. Okay, let's see here. We've got a question. Synthos asks, how come family wasn't called last and called twice? Yeah, Patty is mad. So Synthos, it is called twice. 1, 2. But you have to understand that Lopez is made out of family here. So you see that here, Petrowski Lopez is made out of Petrowski. What is Petrowski made out of? Well, it's made out of family. So kind of in some little way here, this is kind of the inheritance diamond that I talked about. But also, if you think about it, the first thing that's created is a family. And then the next thing that's created is a Petrowski. And then the next thing that's created is now Lopez, so it will be family. And then Lopez. And then we're going to get our Petrowski Lopez. One for Petrowski, one for Lopez. Right? So this is kind of what it makes. But that's not the thing that matters. This is just kind of how the inheritance looks. So I'm glad you understand that. And that's why it was called like that. Okay? So that's all I got for you today. I'll hang out for one more minute here for those of you who've got more questions. Otherwise, you're free to go. Please start your assignment. It's a fun one, I promise. It's a fun one. I'll help you. I have office hours at 15 minutes. So come to office hours if you want to chat. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for coming. I'll see you guys next time. Chef, you're welcome. Have a great day. Cade, you have a great day. Yang, you're welcome. Kane, you're welcome. Uchu, you are welcome. Have a great day. Top Wolf, you're welcome. Synthos, you're welcome. YCS, you're welcome. CS202 student, you are welcome. Turbo says, well, thanks. Well, you're welcome. Did I skip your question? Is that what happened? Nicholas, you're welcome. Giovanni, you are welcome. Hema, you're welcome. Nick, have a great day. Brandon, you are welcome. Hema, I will give that cat some love. And Turbo, I'm sorry if I missed something there. Come talk to me if you need. All right, guys, I'll see you later.